Part of the problem with this industry is that there is no salary guide for us. Any other industry, literally any other profession that you can think of, you can go online and you can go, oh, well, heart surgeons in the greater Dallas-Fort Worth area make an average of blah, blah, blah a year. That kind of documentation doesn't exist for independent authors. So it's a very subjective number. And the reason I say that is because everything costs something, time or money. So if you are a new indie author, you've got 2 books out, you've got 2 more in the pipeline, and you're planning on 8 books or whatever, one of the first things you've got to try to figure out for yourself is, what do I think my time is worth? And you've got to get that down to an hourly rate, and then you compare that against what it would cost you for somebody like me to handle your bookkeeping for you.
Welcome to the Stark Reflections on Writing and Publishing podcast. There has never been a better time for writers. More information, options, and opportunities are available to you, but navigating these requires insight. Join Mark Leslie Lefebvre as he draws upon more than a quarter-century of experience as a writer, a bookseller, and a trusted book industry consultant to explore and reflect on the writing and publishing landscape to help you make informed choices on your writer journey.
Hello, Reflectives, and welcome to episode 390 of the Stark Reflections podcast. This is your host, Mark Leslie Lefebvre. In today's episode, I have an interview with DeAnna Hart of two of Harts Business Services. Now, their mission is empowering indie authors and small businesses through bookkeeping services that not only track the in and out, but also provide tailored product analysis reporting to assist you in growing your business. Two of Harts Business Services is the only accounting-related partner member with Ally, the Alliance of Independent Authors. Now, DeAnna and I have a fantastic conversation, and that's coming up later in this episode. But first, let's hear a word about this episode's sponsor. This episode is sponsored by the 2024 Writing Tools Story Bundle, which was curated by my friend, best-selling author and publisher Kevin J. Anderson. It is a treasure chest of vital handbooks covering aspects of the writer's craft, business, and way of life. There are 13 titles on a range of subjects, plus a year-long subscription to Indie Author Magazine, which is your best source to stay up to date on the indie author industry. Now, you can get this bundle at storybundle.com/writing, but this episode is going out late Eastern Time Zone, November 28th. This story bundle will only be available for just 2 more days. It ends at midnight on November 30th. So after the end of November 2024, you will not be able to get this story bundle. Again, it has 13 titles. It includes a special sneak preview edition of a book I am working on called A Writer's Guide to Branding for Success. And that book's not coming out in completion until probably spring/summer 2025. You'll get about the first, about 15,000 words that have been added to the book, but also you'll be getting the full book prior to its release for retail, as well as 12 other amazing titles, several of which are also exclusives for this story bundle. So don't delay. If you're looking for some fantastic books for writers, check out storybundle.com/writing. But if you go there after November 30th, 2024, you're not going to be able to get it. And over on Twitter, for episode 389, Now You've Gone with Kathy Rankin and Ken K. Mary, Edwin Downward over on Twitter says, finally got around to hearing the latest Stark Reflections. Mark's guests were from the music industry, but the point that struck me the most was the comment about how being a musician on stage is different from being the host that announces them. And thank you, Edwin, for sharing that comment. Yeah, it was so great. Both Kathy and Ken, who are both musicians, and work together, obviously, on Kathy's hot new release, Now You've Gone, which you can hear a sample of over in episode 389, talked about that significant difference of being on stage. As Kathy is the host of a lot of shows, she introduces acts and stuff, how different it is being a host or MC than it is actually being the spotlight guest or the musician, the featured musician as well. Just sort of a different approach. And I love how she talked about it. It's so different. Like when you're there as a musician, you know what you're performing, etc. But when you're there as the person introducing them, how do you act? What are they looking for? You know what they're there for in terms of the music and stuff that you're going to be playing, because that's a set given condition. But what do they want? Do they want humor? Do they want seriousness, etc.? And that's something I feel a lot when I do a lot of emceeing and hosting and stuff like that. You want to read the audience. Now, it's way, way, way easier for me when I do that in person at an in-person event, because you can see the crowd, you can feel them. When you're doing something like that virtually via Zoom, etc., or StreamYard or some other sort of live broadcasting system, oftentimes you cannot see the audience, and it's the audience that usually helps me determine how I'm going to do those things, because you want to play to the audience. But anyways, I appreciate those thoughts, Edwin. Appreciate you sharing those thoughts. I also, again, I continue to hear from people. I'm getting direct messages from people who are appreciative of my turning on the microphone and just letting at her post the results of the U.S. Election. And again, just a reminder, in so many conversations I've had with writers, of the power of connecting that we have as writers, not divisiveness, but actually connecting. And it's so funny because right now I'm in the middle of listening to a book that I think is applicable. And right now, I just finished the chapter on hard conversations, which are conversations where you can actually learn and open your mind and to see other people for the fullness of who they are, not of the group they come from or the side they represent or any of those other things. And this is a book by David Brooks called How to Know a Person. And I'm going to try and reach out to him. I'd love to interview David about it. But I am listening to this audiobook, and I'm probably going to listen to it again, because there's so many points, there's so many salient points that remind me, when I'm in conversations with people, how much more attentive I can actually be listening, so I can benefit and I can learn and I can actually really get to know the person, not from the assumptions I'm making based on what they say, but based on who they truly are. I love how this book is really about connections, and that's what we do as writers and creators, is connections. Okay, I've gone off on a little bit of a reflective tangent, but that is thanks to Edwin, who left that comment over on Twitter. I love when you guys leave your comments, and you can leave comments for any episode over at starkreflections.ca. You can message me directly or tag me in social media. I love hearing what you're thinking, what you're reflecting on when you are listening to these episodes. Okay, now I'm going to play a quick bumper and do a brief personal update. So today is American Thanksgiving as I'm recording this. It is the 28th of November, 2024. I am Canadian, but I can still be thankful. And I just did an episode, a live SPI with Draft to Digital. Self-Publishing Insiders is the token Canadian I was hosting. It was the authors giving thanks. And I had a whole bunch of amazing authors share their thanks and what they're appreciative for. And I had a special surprise co-host, my awesome friend, Sasha Black from the UK of the Rebel Author Podcast. Longtime listeners may remember Sasha, having been on the show. I'm going to have her back because I just had so much fun hanging out and chatting with her. But she also took over my podcast. She as the Rebel author that she is, she took over my podcast. I think it might have been episode 200 way back when, and I'm getting close to 400. So anyway, in any case, it was fantastic. But thinking about things that I'm appreciative of, I'm very thankful for my position in life and the loved ones I have around me, and all of the amazing friends that I'm privileged and honored and blessed to have in my life, family members, loved ones, etc. But I'm really, really also lucky that I get to do this. I get to be a writer I get to be a podcaster. I get to talk about writing and share my passion for writing with you, and in my roles like with Draft to Digital and Wide for the Win, etc. That I get to be in the author community. I get to be part of such a vibrant and amazing community, and I get to work with authors. I mean, seriously, it feels like I never work, and yet I work all the time. I absolutely love what I do. And I love that I get to do this. I'm so lucky. I'm so, so thankful. One of the other things I'm thankful for are people in the industry who give and care and look out for others and lift other people up. And one of the people I want to shout out thanks to is Victoria Strauss of Writer Beware, and the incredible service that Victoria does to help writers not get scammed, because there's so many scam artists out there, and I'm just so appreciative of that. So, okay, that's it for my thanks. I am in full swing getting ready to do some promotions with Merry Christmas, Shitter Was Full, which is a trivia guide to National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. The book officially comes out December 1st. I got my copies from the printer the other day. I'm so happy. It's a mass market size book, same size book as the Canadian Mounted, which is the trivia guide to planes, trains, and automobiles, and last year's Die Hard book, trivia book, which is Yippee-ki-yay MF. You know, if you know the movie, you know exactly that naughty word that is spoken there. I do try not to swear on this podcast, but those are the three trivia books. I have them already. I have a concept for what's going to be coming out next year. Might actually be two books based on what I've been looking at in terms of anniversaries of popular movies from like the 80s, etc. But I'm meeting with the manager of the local Apollo Cinema on December 12th. I'm going to be doing my book launch, the official book launch for that Christmas Vacation book, during a screening of the movie on December 12th in Kitchener, Ontario. I'm so excited about that, because that's my target audience. People are going to be going to see that, and I've never seen it on the big screen. Like last year, we saw Die Hard at the Apollo, and I've seen it hundreds of times, but it was only on a smaller screen at home, never on a large screen. So that'll be fun. But I'm also returning to 570 City News Kitchener next Wednesday, December 4th, with Mike Farwell. He hosts the morning show on 570, and he's such a great guy. I was in there in October talking about the beer and the book that I released, One Hand Screaming and One Hop Screaming, in October, and we just had a blast. He is a book nerd. He's a beer nerd. We just had a really good time, and we're going to have a blast. So he said, come on in. We'll do December 4th. We'll come in. We'll talk about Christmas Vacation. I can quiz him and try and stump him on some trivia, because he's pretty knowledgeable about it. And then the following week, he wants to have me back because he is adamant that Die Hard is not a Christmas movie, and I am adamant that it is. And I think we can have a really fun, engaging argument, the two of us. But I think it'll be a really enjoyable time. Anyways, Mike's a great guy, and it'll be a lot of fun. But so cool to be able to get to do these promotions for something I am so passionate about. Let me see, on Friday, the December 29th, I'm going to be in Stratford, Ontario from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. at a very witchy Christmas market. I'll be there with a lot of my paranormal books, so my true ghost story books, which work well in that environment, as well as my paranormal urban fantasy books as well. And of course, because it's prior to Christmas and people are just looking in general, I will have I won't have my National Lampoon's book, because I won't be getting that back from the printer probably until the first week of December. But I will have Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and Die Hard with me as well. So if you're listening and you're in that area, come and swing by. I'll have a link to where that's going to be in the show notes. Other than that, that is it for my personal update. So I'm going to roll the slightly longer bumper. As you know, I do love to roll those bumpers. And we'll get into this conversation that I had with DeAnna Hart. Hey, DeAnna, welcome back to the Stark Reflections podcast.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It's I've been caught up with you, of course, because I'm lucky enough that I get to chat with you almost every week, the board of Wide for the Win as well.
Yeah.
But my listeners are not so fortunate. So since we last talked on this podcast, which would have been about our co-authored book, Accounting for Authors.
Mm.
What? What has D.F. Hart been up to?
Oh, that's been a busy two. I can't believe that book came out 2.5 years ago already.
Wow. Time
Yeah,
certainly does fly.
yeah, it does. And it seems like the older I get, the more quickly it moves.
I
But
know.
yeah, so we put that book out, I want to say in March 2022. And the in the month or two after that, I had a author entity, Wide for the Win LLC, approached me about keeping their financial records pretty, and I accepted that request, and then I had a an indie author come to me and say, I really don't want to do all this myself. Will you, if I pay you, will you do it for me? And I was like, sure, you know. Um, and that kind of, so that was in April 2022-ish. And then around the same time, I also had a small town newspaper, independent newspaper that was looking for somebody to, he's like, I'd rather just focus on putting the newspaper together. Will you do my bookkeeping too? And I was like, sure.
Oh,
And
wow.
so from there,
And
so
you were
by the end of
working
20,
full time back then, right?
yes, as an
Okay.
accounting manager for a box, corrugated box manufacturer here in Fort Worth, Texas. Yes. And so since then, the roster of clients for me to do bookkeeping for within the author industry has grown. And I wound up actually in early July of this year, wound up walking away from the full-time day job
Wow.
to be able to focus 100% on helping authors grow their businesses by handling their bookkeeping for them so they can do what they like to do, which is market and write. So,
So this is basically you as the MBA, as the expert, as the person with years of accounting experience, and an author who understands
yes.
what's going on in authorly world. You can speak
Yes.
author talk and accounting talk. You basically have clients who you handle their accounting and what is it, the tracking? What does it entail? Like what are the typical things that you're tracking for authors?
Sales each month by not just series, but title and also by format. So we do
Okay.
have got German translations, audiobooks, paperback, hardcover, ebook. She's got 4 or 5 formats per title. And I think a lot of other, not to knock my fellow accountants, but I think a lot of bookkeeping firms, because they don't understand the nuances that are in our industry, that they would just probably just lump that all under sales. And I think it's important for authors to be able to say, okay, I had, you know, $600 a month in sales in ebook, but ooh, this paperback series has taken off and I've sold 250 in paperbacks this month, and last month it was 75. So they're able to
Right.
better track trending, I guess, as far as sales go. Um, if they land a book club featured deal or if they're running cost per click ads, we help track all that as well. We do bank reconciliations, credit card reconciliations, PayPal account reconciliations. We do not ever ask for login information. We believe that security and
Okay.
confidentiality are paramount. So I will never ask a client for any sort of login, storefront or bank.
Right, like no,
Um,
no, here's KDP, here's your my KDP login information.
yep,
They
don't want
actually
it.
they send you the actual
Yes,
uh
if they use scribe count, that's a really easy way to get your reporting down where it's already kind of grouped nicely by title. And then we take that data and we work it into a suitable format to get it over into QuickBooks.
okay.
We set up their titles and formats and series as products, as non-inventory products. So we take a manufacturing approach to
Okay.
the way we do the record keeping. That's what allows us to drill down and provide a report that says, wow, I really had a jump in this series and I've had no ad spend for it. What's going on? And it'll help maybe guide some of their business decisions.
Okay. So
So,
it's not, it doesn't seem to like be that it's just the taking the numbers and dropping them in. It's basically taking the numbers in a way that allows you clarity. It's not, like you said, all sales. It's sales by format, by platform, etc. And
yep.
then this actually provides an author with it sounds like it provides them with the ability to do some really good analysis, right?
Oh, absolutely. And it also, our service, what we provide also makes tax time a lot easier for them when it's time to go to their CPA. Instead of a box full of receipts, you have an actual bona fide balance sheet, an actual bona fide profit and loss statement where your expenses all are all classed and categorized appropriately. And that's going to make your CPA's job a lot easier, which in turn is going to save you money
Ah,
because CPAs typically charge by the hour.
right, right. And if the data's all there, then the CPA can just plug and play. It's a lot
Hmm.
less labor
Hmm.
intensive. Okay.
Yep. And yeah, and if you've got a do-it-yourselfer who files their own taxes, right now we use QuickBooks, and QuickBooks is a sister company. They're all owned by Intuit. So QuickBooks is actually a sister company to TurboTax.
Right,
So the ability to import information in becomes a lot simpler.
right.
I probably ought to let the listening audience know that I am not a CPA. I am
Mhm.
not a tax expert, and I do not want to be either one of those things. So my when it comes to tax, because a lot of people think just accounting just equals tax and that's it. My two biggest pieces of knowledge that I drop on people where taxes are concerned is you need to put back a portion of what you make so that you're not unpleasantly surprised come tax time.
Right, right,
And if you've got specific business questions about the setup or the structure, or should I be an Inc. or an LLC in the US or a sole prop or whatever, that you talk to a certified pro in your area. A lot of them will give you a free initial consultation,
right.
or there's a lot of on resources you can find online to make sure that you are set up appropriately so that you don't get in trouble with the tax man come tax time, you know.
Okay. And is that I want to dig into the specifics of that particular advice because in my
Mm.
first year as a full-time writer, I neglected to put aside money for tax, and oh boy, did that hurt.
Yeah.
So what I've done is my tax rate is 22% is the bracket that I'm in here in, and again, it's different for different states, and I'm in Ontario, Canada.
Right.
But I have started to put aside 30% of all my income into a special bank account, a high interest bank account. And then I quarterly will deposit, like prepay some of those taxes. And then when it comes out the next year, I've got all my money sitting there ready to pay.
Mm.
Is there a particular rate that you usually recommend? Like I went a little generous. I thought, well, if I
Right.
put 30% aside and I'm only required to put 22% aside, I'll always have a bit of a bucket to play with.
Exactly. Exactly. My advice is when in doubt, go high.
Okay.
When in doubt, put back more than you think you will need. We're kind of getting into a gray area, but the single biggest thing I can tell you is that there are some, in the US at least, there are some tax categories that you may not get the full value of that deduction. You may get a percentage of that deduction, and
Right.
that's going to obviously impact your tax liability, right? So
Right.
when in doubt, go high. I would say for every dollar that you make, do a 30, 30, 40. 30 cents to the on the dollar, set aside for for taxes. Plan on putting 30 cents of that back into your business, or 40 cents back into your business, and that leaves you a third that you can do what you want to with. Pay yourself a salary. Maybe you've got maybe you've decided you're going to get into audiobooks and you're trying to set aside money to pay for those. That's a good way to do it. But I would say 30 cents on the dollar is a smart idea to set
Okay.
aside.
So
Yeah.
30% for tax, 30% back into the operating budget, and then 40, potentially 40%, depending on how you split it.
Yep.
For your mad money, I mean buying beer
Yeah.
and more books, right? No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And skulls, beer books and skulls. That's
Yeah.
what people should be buying. Yes.
And when you do the 30, 30, 40 split, you also need to look at not just what it's costing you to build each book or to publish each story. You also need to look at the costs that you're going to have whether you sell 0 books or 1 million books. And those are called overhead expenses, or what I call the costs of doing business.
Right.
Those are things like I have a book funnel subscription. I'm in direct sales, and I've got the fees that my Shopify store charges me. I've got book funnel, a recurring monthly subscription for book funnel to have the ability to send my ebooks via direct sales to my readers, right? Book funnel is going to charge you that amount per month, whether you're actually having any download activity going on or not.
Right.
Scribe count, if you're using Scribe count, which is a data aggregator, they're going to charge you a rate per month, right? Whether you
Yeah.
have 100 sales or zero. If you invest in Vellum to help format your books, that's a one-time cost, but it still needs to be factored in for that financial year that you've bought it, right? So, and that gets back into part of that gets back into how you're pricing your books.
Right.
Are you pricing your books looking at your break-even point? Are you calculating if I have this new story and I want to put it out and it's in German, so I've got narration or translation costs on top of the formatting and the editing and the cover design and all that. You need to build all those costs in to get to a number that you're comfortable with as far as how many units of that German translation do I have to move to get my money back on what I spent on it. That's
Right.
called break even point. And you can do yourself a favor by taking all your costs of doing business and splitting them out across your titles, right? So
Okay.
if it costs you 2,500 total to get your that German translation done, and you've got $2,000 in overhead expenses every year, cost of doing business expenses every year. You're going to take a fraction of that 2,000. You're going to say, well, this book needs to earn me X number of dollars to get to pay it for itself, and it needs to earn an extra $100 to cover its part of the pot of the cost of doing business. A lot of
Yeah.
authors don't do that. They don't take that into account, that you've got expenses that you're going to have no matter what's going on,
Right. Right. So
and you
yeah, it's
should.
not just the cost of an editor for the book, but it's all of the subscriptions and whatever it is, all those recurring costs that
Yep.
that come into play. Which I
Yep.
guess that makes a lot of sense, but we often don't think of that, right? We think, okay, my book cost me this much, and does my cover cost me this, and my editing cost me this, and formatting potentially might have cost me that, and then you forget about, oh yeah, my book funnel subscription, my InDesign, Adobe,
Yeah.
whatever, so like whatever the ongoing costs are.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, if you think about it, if you've got a let's stick with the book funnel as an example. If you've got a book funnel subscription that's $10 a month, that's $120 a year.
Yeah.
If you've got seven or eight different supplemental subscriptions that assist you in producing your product, your books, if you've got seven of those, or let's say five of those that are $120 a year each, that adds up to a chunk of money,
Yeah, that's true.
right?
It's like I can't do the math in my head, but it's more than $500. It might
Yeah.
even be $600 dollars if I did the math properly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
But you
and then
couldn't pick a
so
nice round number like 100, eh?
I know, right? Sorry.
You're used to working with numbers. You're good at it. So for
So,
you work with various clients. You said a newspaper as well as some independent authors, etc.
mhm,
Is there a
mhm.
certain point by which an author, let's say an author who maybe I'm trying to say this gently, isn't ready for an accountant because they have maybe they just published a book and their expenses aren't that hard to track and they have one book and they haven't really sold much. Is there a certain
Right.
point by which it makes sense for an author to start considering that professional services help
Mm,
because it saves them the time?
right. I wouldn't say there's a real hard definitive line. And that sounds like a cop-out answer, but let me explain.
Yeah.
Part of the problem with this industry is that there is no salary guide for us. Any
Right.
other industry, literally any other profession that you can think of, you can go online and you can go, oh, well, heart surgeons in the greater Dallas-Fort Worth area make an average of blah, blah, blah a year. That kind of documentation doesn't exist for independent authors, right?
Right.
So that's a very subjective number.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, that very subjective number can be very telling. um, the gap of it not having something concrete to rely on can make our lives a little bit stressful when it comes to this question.
Right.
And the reason I say that is because everything costs something, time or money. So if you are a new indie author, you've got two books out, you've got two more in the pipeline, and you're planning on eight books or whatever. One of the first things you've got to try to figure out for yourself is, what do I think my time is worth? and you've got to get that down to an hourly rate. And then you compare that against what it would cost you for somebody like me to handle your bookkeeping for you
Right. Okay.
and
Because
say,
those
is it,
hours that you would spend doing it yourself, you could, oh, I don't know, invest back into writing,
you could be
marketing.
writing, you could be handling the things that you can't pass off to other people. And
Right.
that's
Yeah.
another important question. Like I myself will never be able to be a cover designer. I cannot, I'm not
Yeah.
artsy like that. I can't
Right.
draw my way out of a paper bag. So for me, it's a foregone conclusion that I will always, it's more cost effective for me to hire that out
Right.
rather than
Yeah.
try to do it myself. And it's the same scenario with a lot of people for bookkeeping.
Yeah. That makes sense
So,
because the bookkeeping could take, for example, somebody like me, 6 hours, whereas yeah, you probably get her done in an hour, right? So
right.
6 hours of the time that I assume is going to be what my worth is compared to paying you for 1 hour. I mean, that could be or whatever, however long it takes. I would always assume that because you're good at this, that you're going to be a lot more efficient, right? Than me going into my shoebox and pulling out receipts and trying
Yeah.
to figure everything out and go, yeah, what was that subscription? How do I amortize that?
Yeah. Typically, what takes us the most time on a monthly basis when we're working on our client stuff is if there's something that shows up in the bank account, for example, an expense that shows up in the bank account that we don't know what that vendor does or what it's for,
Right,
then there is a little bit of, we'll reach back out to the client and say, hey, I'm seeing this number, you know, what what does this entity do? What was this expense for?
right,
Or you have entities like Amazon that it may be a Prime subscription, or it may be a new desk, which is would be a, do we need to classify that as a fixed asset for you?
right,
So there are back and forth questions we have like that. Or they have a direct sales shop, they have a Shopify store or a WooCommerce store, and they send us a report and there's a new title that we didn't know anything about. Well, now we've got to pause and ask questions so we can make sure we set that up correctly in the products and services setup so we can make sure the cost is captured accurately, things like that.
right.
One of our bigger clients has, I think, 80 books now and 4 or 5 formats of each. And her stuff, like completely start to finish every month, takes us about 10 hours a month.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, wow.
So,
Amazing.
and there are other things too, like if you clients can help us kind of shave some of that time off if they send us reports out of scribe count, because scribe count will automatically default to your home currency,
Oh,
whereas the reports that come out of Amazon show the transactions in their native sales currencies,
yeah.
and we have to convert that.
Of course, yeah. It has to be
And
in the currency by which you track your business. Yeah,
yes. And so if you send us an Amazon report that's got 2,000 lines of transactions and there's 7 different currencies involved, that's obviously going to take us a little bit longer
yeah.
because we've got to get everything into US. If you're in a US author, we've got to get that into US dollars and then we can enter it into QuickBooks, right? So
Right. Wow.
yeah, but on average, our biggest client right now takes us about 10 hours a month.
Okay. Wow. Interesting. And so if somebody's interested in working with you, what's how do they contact you? Do you set up a consult first just to see if it's actually a match?
Yes, yes. If they go to our website, which, and we'll, I guess we'll put a thing across the bottom for video, but it's two of hearts accounting.com. It's the number two, the word of, and then hearts, HARTS dot a, no, sorry, two of hearts, ACCTG.com.
Cool.
And that
Awesome.
takes you to two of Harts Business Services. And what we do is there's an intake form that we ask everybody to fill out if they're potentially interested in working with us. And that gives us some basic data that we need. At that point, I would schedule a free initial Zoom consultation with them and we get face to face and let's talk about your business. The thing that's really cool about the way that we approach this is that I'm able to set up some very, if they've got a unique set of reports that they need or something like that, then I can I can factor all that in, but it's important for me to have a face-to-face conversation with them. We are not a we are not a big faceless corporation. We are a family-owned company. This is me and my sister, my co-owner. We have a combined 47 years experience doing accounting, accounts
Wow.
payable, receivable, bank recs, all the way up to building financial statements. And we also have I mean, I myself am an author. I think I've got 22 or 23 titles out now, and we love small business. We think small businesses are awesome, and we love indie authors. So anyway, people go to the website, check us out. People fill out the intake form, and then I schedule a Zoom with them. And at that point, I will be able to quote you a flat fixed monthly rate
Right.
for our services.
Okay, cool. And just a reminder to listeners that the link will be in the show notes at starkreflections.ca. Now, you mentioned this, and I was going to bring it up, and that is a perfect segue. You're an
Okay.
author. You write
I
under the
am.
name D.F. Hart. You have 22, 23 books out there already.
Yeah.
What I always worry about, particularly when an author gets into the business of helping other authors, is how has that changed your time in terms of working on the DF Hart aspect of your business?
It's impacted it. I'll be
Yeah,
honest. At one point, though, up until July of this year, I was my time Monday through Friday from 7:30 to 4:30 wasn't my own.
right.
So for the several years, I was doing the daytime, the full-time day job, and then trying my best to write at night.
Oh, wow.
So I've left the day job, but that's beginning to fill in with the Two of Hearts stuff.
Right.
So I'm not quite as disciplined about my own writing as I should be, but I am working on that.
Yeah. Well, I hate, yeah, because I know you've got some great mysteries. You got some great thrillers going on there. And that's the other aspect that I think is so important to remind listeners is that DeAnna isn't just a professional accountant, an MBA with the decades and decades of experience. She's also an author who gets
Oh
it
yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
understands from the inside. It's not just a number cruncher. It's a number cruncher who also strings words together, right?
Yeah.
Weaves words together.
Yep. So I definitely, I mean, from both sides of that conversation, I definitely understand things like permafree and royalty split. And,
Right,
I'm in a box set with four other authors. How does that look? And
right.
waiting 90 days to get paid for a sale. Thank you, Amazon. You
Yeah,
know,
when you have to pay for the marketing now, but the money doesn't come till 90 days later. But then you also understand, with the free first in series, the read through and having to amortize the cost of marketing across, well, calculating read through and getting to the dollars. It's not straightforward. Sell one, pay for something, right?
right, right. Yeah. I mean, the whole basis. I mean, I've worked in a lot of industries in my accounting career, and being an indie author is one of the longest lead times as far as receiving money that you've earned that I've come across.
Oh yeah, usually it's pay within 30 days, right?
Mm,
For
yeah,
most businesses. Yeah.
most businesses are either on receipt or net 30. So
Yeah.
the fact that we have to wait 90 days to get paid, which so it's awesome when we get a book bub, and it's awesome when we see those numbers, and it's awesome when we see all that sell through. But yeah, it you know makes it kind of hard to if you don't have a really good hold and a really good idea about your budgeting, which is a whole other topic for authors.
Right.
It can get a little crunchy. It can get a little narrow there
Oh
between
yeah.
I
For
learned I
sure.
earned I earned $4,000 this month. I'm not going to see it for 2 more months, but
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. But I still have
yeah.
to pay the bills.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and it's so funny because indie authors have to wait, 45 to 90 days depending on the platform where they're selling their stuff. But in traditional publishing, most of my traditional publishers pay royalties once a year. So I look at
Ooh.
90 days as woo.
Ooh. Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah, in that instance, absolutely. Yeah. Woo. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is why,
Yeah.
most authors can't earn a living if they're
Right.
only traditionally publishing.
Right.
It's
And
just
I
too
do
difficult.
want to and I do want to take a moment to say we are happy to work with if there's people that out there that have got trad pub books that need our help. please visit our website.
Yeah.
If I myself am a wide author. I am a firm believer in having as many legs on the stool on that little chair as possible to keep it from tipping over.
Right.
But we do have clients that do have books in KU. So
Yeah.
we are fluent in converting page reads to units sold
Yeah.
and tracking it for you. So yeah,
Awesome.
we can
Awesome.
handle all that.
So I know we are recording this in September of 2024. I know I'm
Mhm.
gonna get a chance to see you at Author Nation in November 2024. So
Yes.
that's exciting for anyone who's listening to this episode before November 2024. If you're at Author Nation, be sure to swing by and say hi. DeAnna, you have a Two of Hearts booth there, right? And an author
I
booth.
I do. I'm going to have a two of Harts Business Services end cap table on Industry Day, which is Monday the 11th. And then I've got an author table for the Rave event, which I believe is on Friday the 15th.
Yeah.
So I will be swapping out hats through the course of the week.
Awesome.
And if for those authors who maybe if you've already bought a ticket for Author Nation, I will be giving a presentation also on Thursday the 13th. And it's really not a standard presentation. This is going to be more interactive than that. We're going to be doing a workshop. So if you want to see real-time examples of how to calculate your cost per sale, cost per click, your read through, your sell through, how to figure break-even point, how to allocate those costs of doing business over your titles, like I mentioned earlier, then you need to come join us at Author Nation. I'll be walking you hands-on through all of those calculations. It's the most common calculations that authors really need to know for their business.
Awesome.
Yeah. So.
Awesome. DeAnna, thank you.
And you and
Oh,
I get
oh,
to meet in person for the first time.
I know. It seems like we haven't chat for all these
No,
years, and yet this will be the
no,
first time. So I am so
no.
looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think you and I have been in each other's orbit since 2019, 2020,
Yeah.
and
And
we'll finally get to meet in person in
this
November.
is
I'm so
exciting.
excited. Yeah.
Another reason why it's so great to get to those in-person conferences. Speaking of which, there was a
Mm.
special Wide for the Win wide stream that we did,
Yes.
yourself and myself and Paul, and
Yep.
yeah, it was just the three of us that recorded it, and it was how to make the most of a conference. I'll have a link to that in the show notes too, so people can
Yeah.
check out that bonus material. DeAnna, thank you
Yes.
so much for hanging out with me today.
Not a problem. It was fun.
So I love chatting with DeAnna, and a few things to reflect on. It's that I I know her so well. We work together as board members for Wide for the Win, and we get to talk regularly. I'm so excited. I actually got to meet her in person in Vegas. Now, I had to bail out on a lot of things when I was in Vegas because I got ill. And so, early in the week I was fine, then I was ill for a few days. So I was really under the weather. I didn't do a lot of social events in the evenings or anything. I did mostly low key just because I was so exhausted as well. I mean, there was parties and things I was invited to. I just couldn't stay up that late. Like it starts at 9 o'clock. I'm like, I can't do it. I needed to heal. I needed to rest. And so, I regret not being able to hang out more with these cool people. But I also, I know it's important to take care of yourself. So, but anyways, yeah, it's so amazing that we hadn't met in person before, but it felt like we had when I first saw her because we knew each other so well, which is so amazing. First the thing about our conversation to reflect on is DeAnna talking about earning the money now and seeing that you're earning it. Yeah, you can log into your dashboard and you can say, "Oh my God, look at all the sales I have," but you're not going to get that for 90 days. So here's something that happens to me regularly on when I look at my sales is ever since I started doing the movie trivia books, like the Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, usually starting mid-October, November, December, I get a huge increase in sales, particularly of the paperback version of the Canadian Mounted. And it's a significant chunk of change. And it's kind of funny as I'm looking at my business and I'm looking at how I'm going to realign the business and actually adjust because right now all of the money that I earn in the consulting and writerly stuff I do all goes into the same bank account. And what I'm not doing, and I haven't done yet, is I haven't put it into a Stark only account that I don't live off of, right? This is the bank account I use, my main bank account that I use for a living. And so I do my best to manage it and put stuff away for income tax and stuff. But what I haven't done is actually separate that and then pay myself out of that as a chunk out of that. So listening to this conversation with DeAnna has reminded me of that. And then as I was thinking, I look at it and I go, okay, there's a significant amount of revenue. I mean, I'm a mid 5-figure author. I have not yet cracked 6 figures, and I say that yet, but I'm in the mid range of 5 figures per year. So I'm doing relatively well as an author, but it's amazing to see the significant increase in income that I've earned this time of year, but I don't get paid. It doesn't come in until January, February, March, April is when that money's coming in every year. So it's kind of interesting. I look at it and go, well, I got the sales in October, November, and December, but I'm not going to get paid until next year. So in the way that I do my accounting is, it's exciting that right now, the Canadian Mounted is number 1 in 3 categories on Amazon. It was like item number 3,600 and change overall of print books in the Amazon store, which is pretty amazing because most of my books are in the hundreds of thousands most of the time. And so that's a really amazing place to be in. So, it's earning some really decent dough. But again, that's money I'm earning now, but I'm not going to see that money for several months. And so DeAnna reminded me about, and then there's obviously the different ways of doing the accounting. And I prefer to do the accounting not as a money owed to me. It ain't mine till it's mine. Until it's in my bank account, I don't count it as income, because that's when I take the 30% and I put that 30% of whatever it is, $1, $100, $1,000, $10,000, whatever it is that's coming in, I take 30% of that and I put that aside for my income tax fund. But in any case, it was a reflection. It was really important for me to consider, how that works in general as well, and how it works with different income. I'm working about to sign a contract with another traditional publisher, and I know that's going to be a different way of getting the income. I think this is a publisher that pays twice a year, so rather than me getting paid every month. And I'm also I've applied for a grant, an Ontario grant, because of the content of the book that I'm offering. And I've never done that before. I've never applied for a writing grant. So it was a really strenuous, tedious process. But in any case, that's it for the reflections. Now, I interviewed DeAnna back in September, and I had fully intended to try to get this episode out prior to her being at Author Nation, so that anyone who's listening who goes made a point of going to see DeAnna. And I dropped the ball on that one. Probably because I was traveling so much and I ended up doing so many solo episodes, I didn't end up getting to this interview. I have so many other interviews in the queue, and ones I'm continuing to do. But what I want to do is I want to do something special, both for DeAnna as well as for my patrons. And I haven't reached out to DeAnna about this, but she's a pretty cool person. I want to... I'm going to take the funding I've gotten from my patrons. I'm going to find out how much DeAnna would charge. And what I'm going to do for my patrons, for all of my patrons who pay either $1 or $3 or $5 a month, it doesn't matter what level you're at, every single patron is going to get access to a special event that I want to do, a special closed event, which is going to be a video where DeAnna is going to come in and I'm going to ask her to do that hands-on workshop she talked about, where she's going to do some worksheets and it's going to be very interactive, that she did at Author Nation. I want to do that for my patrons. I think it would be absolutely amazing to have that engagement, that interaction, and then I can give something really awesome back to the awesome folks who support this podcast over at patreon.com/starkreflections. So patrons, if you're listening, and this goes as well to my Buy Me a Coffee pals, my buddies there, I'll send that out to you guys as well, because you guys are also supporting the podcast. I really appreciate that. I'm going to send that out there and invite you guys to this special session. I'll talk to DeAnna about it, see if it's something we can do in December, and if not in December, maybe it's something we can do early in the new year. But I'll get that on the calendar with DeAnna, find out how much she charged for that, because I want to support her. She's an amazing person. I want to support the Two of Harts Accounting business. I met her sister in Vegas. She is also awesome. So it's like the Two of Harts. They really are. They're full of heart. I know it's their last name, but just amazing people. Love that. So twoofheartsaccounting.com. There'll be links to it in the show notes if you want to check it out. And of course, for my awesome patrons who do that special workshop with DeAnna, and I'm pretty sure DeAnna will be all over that, as she loves helping authors. She's absolutely fantastic. So that is it. That is it for my reflection. That is it for this special cool offer. A huge thank you to those who support this podcast over at patreon.com/starkreflections, as well as my coffee buddies over at buymeacoffee.com/Mark Leslie. I really do appreciate your support, and I want to do everything I can to give back to the community. And of course, I appreciate all my listeners. I do love having you guys there. I love that you let me bend your ear and share these amazing guests with you every single week. If you do want to support the podcast, you do not have to support it financially. I love that it's free. Just feel free to leave a review wherever you leave a review for podcasts, or better yet, share this episode or any episode that you think has value that you want to share with other authors with them. That absolutely, definitely helps me. So thank you again for listening. Until next week, and until next episode, I am, as always, Mark Leslie Lefebvre, and I am wishing you, as always, great writing and good Stark Reflections.
Thank you for listening to the Stark Reflections podcast. You can find show notes for each episode at starkreflections.ca.
The music for this podcast, Laser Groove, was composed and produced by Kevin MacLeod. Check out more of Kevin's great music at incomptech.com.